I'm Tomoki. I'm bisexual and an aspiring actor and presenter living in New Zealand. Being a New Zealander obviously means that I've grown up in an accepting and open-minded society. However, it has come to my attention that a few years ago, this country hasn't always been this way. I want to know, can we as an accepting society get any more accepting? What is the future of LGBT? In New Zealand today, the stereotypical homophobia is not acceptable. However, as the world advances, there's a lot more expectation on what is and isn't okay to say. The United Nations have made it a human right that we all have the freedom of loving whoever we want. Yet, why is there still an issue with homophobia? Another question is, why aren't we taught much about this right? Acceptance towards LGBT people throughout the whole world in general has gotten a lot better. This is causing a lot more people to feel more comfortable with who they are and feeling more freedom in how they express themselves.
Is it something about your personality?
I guess so.
What is it? I might know anyway.
Guess.
No, I don't want to guess. I want you to tell me. That boys or girls? You gay? It's okay, I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, silly.
So, how would it make you feel if I married a man?
If you marry a man, it's going to be so cool.
Attitudes towards homosexuality have definitely changed over the years, including here in New Zealand. There are countries such as Japan, the UK, have gotten more accepting towards the LGBT community. However, it's still a fact that in 72 countries, homosexuality is still illegal, and in 13 of them, it's punishable by death. Some of these countries include Qatar, Iraq, Sudan, and even parts of Nigeria. How long has homosexuality been around for?
Forever. But they invented like the labels of homosexuality and heterosexuality like in the late 1800s. Yeah, so it's been around forever. If you look at like Greek literature and things like that, hasn't had the terms that we put upon it now until just before the 1900s.
Who are some historical figures who are part of the LGBT community?
The likes of like Socrates and Plato had the labels put upon them, but other than that I'm not 100% sure. I guess because it is the whole labelling again.
Do you believe that there's been any former expectation of a specific sexuality?
Probably. I mean, there was, you're back in the 50s and things like that, you had your traditional like family values that were placed upon people that I think we've definitely moved away from now. And the fact that there's not that expectation of everyone just to be, get married and have children, and then go to work, and the woman stay at home with those children. We've moved away from that a bit.
What caused a movement and thoughts towards the LGBT community?
Probably like things like the Stonewall in riots and things like that in the 60s, and then again with the AIDS epidemic in the 80s, and we've had the just equality movements across like the world.
How much has New Zealand developed?
Hopefully a lot. Hopefully, I know that we've had we've had the Crimes Amendment Bill in the late 70s, where that was a major point of change, where we just got rid of stupid rules and taking away the enforcement of crime against LGBT people, and then again the Marriage Equality Act that we've had recently, and those sort of things. So hopefully we've had some movement. We've gone from having it be illegal to not be illegal.
What do you think the lifestyle was like for people part of the LGBT community when it was illegal?
Awful. Just so hard. It can't, having to hide yourself and not be your true self because of some ridiculous law. It's just, you can't even imagine how difficult that must have been.
Why has the LGBT community had a very dark history?
Just people's ignorance and like fear, possibly like as well, but mainly ignorance and just the unknown.
Means the world. I'm not less than anyone else.
This is a truly historic day for this country.
It is important for me to go ahead and affirm that I think same-sex couples should be able to get married.
Portugal's parliament says yes to gay marriage.
Un texte de loi de grand progrès, de grande générosité, de fraternité et d'égalité.
From zero representation to the biggest companies fighting for change, the LGBT community has gone through many fights and many changes within the media. Companies such as Marvel have made their villains such as Loki being pansexual and gender fluid, with Disney making characters LeFou from Beauty and the Beast being a homosexual. Why has there been no or less representation in the past?
I think the LGBT community has been ignored in the media for a long time because their community has been ostracized from society for various reasons, many of them, religious or conservative values, and so they haven't been seen as a community who was positive to be portrayed.
What are some examples of LGBT representation?
Many of the ones I can think of off the top of my head are from television. You think about TV programs like Glee, Modern Family, How to Get Away with Murder, and then reality television programs like Queer Eye that all portray the LGBT community.
Who was the first person to be out in media, as far as you know?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question, and I think the earliest examples I can think of quite famous people would be musicians such as Elton John and David Bowie, who both came out around the 70s, and from what I remember, I think initially they came out as bisexual, and then after a while, like Elton John was married to a female, and then when that broke up, he came out as a gay man, whereas David Bowie sort of went back and forth between being bisexual, gay, and then he talked about this. Bowie talked about the fact that he felt coming out as bisexual in the 70s could hurt his career, because America in particular wasn't quite ready for that. I think if the media continue their trend of increased diversity in how LGBT people are portrayed, that we are going to see more positive representations, which will create more positive influences and will help LGBT people see themselves and see what they are capable of, and see that being out and that being LGBT is a positive thing, and not see it as simply something done for comical effect or something that's shown for negative reasons, which is sort of the way it was in the past.
Why do you think companies such as DC, Marvel, and Disney can bring in LGBT superheroes and readers?
I like to think it's because there are a more diverse group of people writing and producing these films, and that they want to see more diversity in who's represented, that it's coming from a good place of wanting to show more positive representations of LGBT people on screen. Though I know there is a more cynical viewpoint that it's being done for cash as a way of sort of appealing to that community. Me personally, I think it is from a good place. I think that we are seeing, because society is becoming more tolerant and accepting, we're seeing more people trying to represent that positively on screen. So I remember there was a backlash, for example, in the Star Wars fandom amongst certain individuals who felt, I think it's always a vocal minority, I don't think it speaks for everyone at all, but I think there were a vocal minority who were upset when they learned that there were intentions of there being a gay couple in the new Star Wars films, that J.J. Abrams, the director of Episode 7, was going to have a gay couple on screen, which was not something that had previously been shown in the Star Wars world. So, there will be people who will be upset by that.
And bringing in more sexuality has changed perspectives towards homosexuality?
Yeah, I believe so. I certainly think in recent times that, having more representations of LGBT people on screen has created more opportunities for acceptance and empathy. I think a really good example of this from the last couple of months has been Queer Eye on Netflix, which is a show that works really hard, I think, to create acceptance of all people. And I think the message that comes across really strongly on that show is that the similarities between people of all genders and sexualities and ethnicities.
With the history of incorrect sexuality representations, you would actually think that the media would start to consider realistic representations of sexuality within their media. School is a place of exploring yourself, and the younger generations are seen as the most accepting generations the world has ever had. But still, why is homophobia still a massive issue within the classroom? New Zealand has one of the highest suicide rates in the world, and people part of the LGBT community, in the youth section in particular, are nearly 4 times more likely to have suicidal thoughts. Going to talk to a teacher to talk about the way LGBT students are treated throughout the school and how the education system works around the LGBT community.
Understanding of cisnormativity is the assumption that your birth gender should be your gender. I think that at the school we, in my experience at least, through our curriculum, there's no leaning one way or another. We're able to appreciate and accept the gender or the gender transitions that students go through. My previous school was quite a conservative sort of a place, and I'd say that nothing to do with their curriculum necessarily, but just the way that the school was set up in terms of its uniform, for example. Was cisnormative in the sense that the expectation was, I suppose, kind of unspoken expectation was that a student's birth gender was their gender. I think it's a reasonable assumption to make in the sense that the gender that you're born as, for most people, reflects the gender that they continue to be. And by gender here, I don't necessarily mean the social constructions of gender roles, I mean the sex, the body's sex. I think kind of applying labels on people's gender itself is problematic. I mean, sometimes people just want to be who they are, and so kind of boxing people's sense of themselves under a letter is itself problematic. My role is learning, and what that means to me is on the one hand, of course, academic learning, but on the other hand also learning about yourself. And if that self-learning includes questioning your gender, then that's okay. We can assist in that learning process.
So would you say that understanding a student's gender would be important for the student-teacher relationship?
Absolutely, yes, most certainly. Although that's not the extent of the relationship. That's a part of it, but I think it's important for a teacher and a student to meet where they're at. Whether that's in a cisnormative gender position or in a transitional position, I think it's important that we see each other as being human beings. I think if a student is homosexual or bi or questioning, I think it's important to talk about those things. That helps acceptance, it helps feelings to be kind of examined and discussed.
Do you feel like there's a lack of education towards gender and sexuality?
I think there has been. I think we're getting better. I think there's a little bit more to go. We are, as I don't want to say the industry, but the space that we operate is changing so much right now that we're kind of keeping up, but maybe not becoming 100% experts in it.
Do the students go to you for help or more information regarding their identity?
Yeah, when it comes to identity, I'm only in my second year of teaching, but in that time I haven't had anyone come to me to ask for help, like to figure it out or to make sense of. But lots about information. Like people are genuinely interested these days in identity because it's not binary. Like it used to be. Like that's not the actual norm anymore. And you get a few people that are caught out with what that actually means. So yeah, they're gaining information, I guess, so they don't feel naive. So lots of that.
Do you still like the sex education to change?
I think we could refine it. I think we're on the right thing right now. What's going on in society about gender pay gaps, all this kind of stuff, and then people go, what is gender? And then now we're discussing that, and I said it's a fluid kind of thing right now. There's how many different types of identities, and it seems to change, or it's a different number depending who you talk to, etc. That at the moment we're increasing and acknowledging, so we're increasing knowledge and acknowledging that there is more than just binary. And I think that's the space that we need to be in. We're kind of talking about if things are too great a leap, people, they can't comprehend it. Schooling now, compared to schooling where I was, when I was this age, or your guys' age, if you could think about the massive jump that is, and if that happened overnight, people would just think you're nuts, So a gradual change is a good thing, and I think we're where we need to be. But I expect change, and I would encourage change as things change around us as well. They say that knowledge, like if we arm students with knowledge, then they can make better decisions, and that's my stance. So I guess the short answer would be no, I don't worry. However, I do also feel that sometimes some of the information that we're talking about can lead people, and they may not be at the, they may be trying to figure out, like you asked me the question before, would they come for information or for help? If people are in a position of giving help as a health teacher, I don't think that's our zone, and that's why I worry about that. We talk about these things that invokes certain conversations, and then we end up in a space where we shouldn't be, because at the end of the day we are teaching curriculum, and that's what we're there for. And there are other people, like we use RainbowYOUTH and all those kind of guys, and they're connected with us, and we use those guys to really do a good job, an unbiased job of helping people with things like gender and identity. Whereas teaching is more about making sure that we're covering off the curriculum as useful things. Yeah, I largely know. I do worry though that some of what we teach leads on to other things. It's not negative, it's just we need to make sure that the right professional people are there to do that.
Do you think that there's a lack of education towards sexuality?
Not really. Okay, I think particularly at level 2, Year 12 health covers it really well, and in the lower levels in the junior health and peer curriculum it's covered quite well. There may be a bit of a gap between level 1 and level 3, and potentially younger than Year 9 health education. I'm not really sure of that because I don't know the junior curriculum. So potentially at those levels there could be an introduction lacking, maybe? As long as you take health. But if you don't take health, then yes.
Do students go to you for help with more information regarding their sexual orientation and gender?
Really? No, not really. No.
Do you encourage them?
Not really. If someone wanted to engage with me, then I would listen. But I would say I encourage them to talk to me about it. I think it's a personal preference, so if they want to talk about it, then they can approach me, but I wouldn't say, hey, do you want to talk to me about your sexuality? Do you know what I mean?
Do you ever feel like you're worried about what's being taught? Is it too much or too little?
No, I don't think I worry about it. We do like a contract when we talk about things, and that there's going to be sensitive material to be covered. So we make that quite clear at the beginning of the unit. in terms of too much, in terms of lack of. I wouldn't say I worry about it, but definitely there is a gap somewhat in the level 1, level 3 maybe. But you can also choose a focus, so it could be that you fix a standard to a sexuality issue, because it's quite a broad scope of what you can choose from.
Do you feel like you have the slightest bit more responsibility to help students find out who they are?
The slightest. Maybe slightly, because we teach it. They probably look towards more than other teachers around the school. In terms of a responsibility, not so much, but definitely there's some kind of, there is some connection there in terms of they would look at us before they come to an English teacher or a maths teacher probably, because we probably have a lot more understanding around it. But in terms of a teacher that maybe, we used to have a teacher who used to work for RainbowYOUTH, so his knowledge, even though he didn't teach health, was a lot larger than my knowledge. So potentially people would look to him more than they would look to me because of his knowledge of it. But yeah, definitely because of because we have more understanding of the subject that they would probably look towards me.
Are you satisfied with the education in general, such as English and math, bringing gender and sexuality?
That's a good question. Definitely think it's been a maths, probably not, but I do know that they've talked in English about like the Disney in terms of the relationships and things like that within there, and stereotypes. And so I think it is being covered in other subjects, such as English. In terms of maths and science, probably not. Yeah.
Do you think a sex education towards sexuality and gender should be compulsory?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that in fact I think health should be taught as a compulsory subject throughout senior school. Same with PE. Maybe I'm a little bit biased. But yeah, I think PE and health should be taught because there are so many things that we cover in health that everybody should know, and to gain a better understanding of things like sexuality. And personal bias there may be.
Although New Zealand is a very accepting and open-minded society and a very safe country for the LGBT community, I can definitely see that in the future we're going to be even safer and we're going to have an even brighter rainbow for the community.